This is my preferred method of fixing a brand that's done everything right, but for some reason still can't grow. When these guys came to me, they knew that there was a bigger audience out there for them, but every time they tried to expand beyond initial cohort, the messaging just didn't land like the way it used to. So I applied a psychology-based framework that I've been testing for the last 4 years, and within a few weeks, one of their PDP tests came back with a 302% lift in conversion rate. Their collagen ads started running about 25% more efficient than the ones that had been working for them for years, and they were finally on their way to scaling again. I'm Sarah Levinger. I'm a creative strategist, and I help D2C brands improve their ad performance using consumer psychology. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how we got Lineage Provisions to this point. Not just to show you what's possible, but I want to show you the thinking behind it, because that's the part that you can actually take and apply to your own brand today. Let's get into it. Lineage Provisions is a D2C brand that sells these amazing ancestral products. They're nutrition-based beef snacks, collagen, air-dried steak, whole, like real food, primal living, very, very founder-led brand. Been doing really well, honestly. Very passionate customer base too. All kind of built around the founder's personal brand and philosophy. But here's the situation they came to with. They had done all the right thing. They had a strong founder presence. They had loyal customers. They had a very clear product line. But as they tried to grow, they kept hitting the same wall over and over again. The next cohort of customers just wasn't responding to the same messaging that won the first. And the questions that they were sitting with were really ones that I think every founder-led brand eventually asks. Who actually buys from us today? What is motivating them to purchase? What's stopping the next group from buying from us? And what messaging is actually resonating with people, not just what sounds good in a brief. They had a whole bunch of customer data, but they couldn't build like a representative enough sample to really trust the answers that they were getting. The problem here wasn't effort, wasn't really budget, and it definitely wasn't creative volume. I truly believe it was just point of view. So they were looking at their customer through the lens of what worked before, not what was currently working now, especially for top of funnel customers. So here's where this gets really interesting. We ran something called a creative intelligence map. It's the CIM. This is kind of a proprietary framework that I've developed over the course of the last 4 years to help us understand what our team psychology is and what the consumer psychology is, and try and identify the gap between the two so that we can solve it. When we ran the CIM, we actually found 6 distinct customer persona types living within the brand that had kind of been treated as essentially 1 or 2 audiences by the team. There was the family guardian, we had the wellness woman, there was a high performance professional, an expert researcher, we had an active optimizer in here, and we also had an ancestral optimizer, which is more of that like Paul persona, which was the founder's original tribe. Here's the thing about this though. Every single one of these personas had a different set of barrier. Lots of different triggers in here, a different version of trust that every persona needed to be able to move forward. They had lots of different reasons for saying no, but the brand's creative was just speaking to all of them in the same voice, which was the founder's voice. And this is kind of that Paul persona voice that we talked about before. It was spot on for the original tribe, but it was just a wall for everybody else. So we had this gap. This is where a lot of brands get stuck, because finding that messaging gap is one thing, but knowing what to do about it is something else entirely. And it takes a little bit of time to understand what we should put in place and how we need to build our marketing messages around it. So very important key here. The insight itself is not actually the most important part of this story. The insights that we found were real, but really it was the pattern of insights across all 6 personas that kind of changed the course of the brand for good. We found across 6 personas, customers were essentially only asking themselves 3 different questions before they purchased. The first was, what did this do for me today? They were looking at this as utilitarian purchase and not like a pleasure-focused purchase. They really needed to know, is this going to solve anything for me today quickly and easily? Second question that they were asking was, will it taste or feel good? Which I found really interesting, because when we looked at the data, taste was not something that we were actively trying to go towards as a marketing department. And it was something that was just like clear, just left behind opportunity that we could act on today. Third was, why should I trust it and is it worth it? There was a lot of requests inside the customer data that basically just honed in on, why should I trust you compared to everybody else in the industry? And that is something that takes time to develop, but it was worth discovering so that we could put some mechanisms in place to account for it for the rest of the year. If the creative didn't answer all 3 of those questions in roughly that order, the customer just bounced. It didn't matter how good the product was, it didn't matter how strong the founder's voice was. The reason this worked for Lineage isn't because we found some insights, but it worked because we translated those insights into actual marketing material, product pages, landing pages, PDPs, actual emails, actual ads. We took what we learned and we actually translated it across all the department material that we needed to create very specific creative briefs, specific copy structures, specific like visual hierarchies for each persona. And that's the part that I think 99% of customer research never makes it to, which is the execution foundation layer. This is kind of the difference between insight that just sits in a Notion folder and insight that actually helps the brand grow past the plateau. So here's how this all played out. For the supplement side, the collagen audience specifically, we found that existing ads were kind of leaning heavily on the founder's voice and authority, which worked for that Paul persona that just really loved that particular person. But the wellness woman just wasn't buying into that authority. She just wanted evidence. She wanted to see the real result, right? On a real face, not the founder's face, but just a face that looked like hers. So we built a brief around a real customer transformation, actual faces, and laid them out very distinctly. Day 1, day 4, and then 3 months. Real results on a real person with visual hierarchy represented, answering the 3 questions in that order. What does it do? What can I expect? Why should I trust it? And then we presented the product. Those ads are now running about 25% more efficient than the founder-led collagen ads that had been running for years. On the snack side, Meat Sticks specifically was really interesting. The team tested PDP copy that followed kind of the same benefit, taste, trust kind of a framework, but they tightened it a little bit. So it was shorter, punchier. The first version of the ad actually flopped because it was a little too long. So they iterated, they kept up the structure, cut the words down, made it a little bit easier to digest. And the rewrite came back with a 302% lift in conversion rate. That 302% lift wasn't about copy length, although that did help quite a lot. It was actually just evidence that the 3 question sequence was real, right? When a customer's brain gets those answers in order, conversion rate goes up, and when it doesn't, conversion rate tanks. We saw both in the same brand in the same week, right? So that's about as clean as proof as you can get in this type of work. The 25% efficiency gain on the collagen ads really tells me something very distinct. It tells me that the persona segmentation was right. The wellness woman is not the same as the Paul persona, right? The speaking to her in kind of her own visual language is really going to pull that lift out. On real spend in a real ad account, and the messaging framework that we found now runs across basically every channel, and that's the thing that I think I'm most proud of, because this is what compounds. This is the part that keeps working after I am gone, and it's something the team can lean on as they start to grow again. Okay, 4 things that you can apply to your own brand today. Number 1, stop assuming that you only have one audience. Pull the last 90 days of customer reviews and take a look at the language that people are using to describe why they purchased from you. If you're seeing 3 or 4 distinctly different reasons showing up, that typically means that you have 3 or 4 distinctly different personas. Number 2, I want you to run the 3-question audit on your current PDP and your top spending ad. Ask yourself in order, does this answer what it does for them today, right? Today in particular. Does it tell them what it'll feel like or what it'll taste like, what the experience will be, so that they can easily understand what they're about to experience when they purchase it? And then does it earn their trust? Does it close that is it worth it gap for them? Number 3, and I think this is honestly the most important one, check to see what patterns apply across all of your products, and then make that a part of the brand messaging overall. Very, very important to realize that like humans are not that different from each other. A lot of us have very different experiences in life, but the core needs that we have deep inside were really just there since birth. We experience them through childhood, and as we go up into our adult years, we carry them with us. So a lot of times, very many different avatars will all fit for the same exact product, just based upon the fact that humans are pretty similar, and we all have things that we need to solve in our life together. Finally, once you've got these items nailed down, don't just create a doc and leave it in Notion, because that's what I typically see for brand work. You can't just leave this somewhere to die on like a slow forgotten death. You gotta update this, not so that you can get it right, but so that you can't get it wrong. When you kind of replace all of your assumptions about your customers with real psychological insight, everything downstream gets a whole lot easier to produce. If you want to see me do this type of work live, running through kind of like real ad concepts, testing them in real time, make sure that you check out this video. Otherwise, I'd love to see you inside my school community. Join if you want to think like a psychologist and market like a strategist. I host weekly calls and I share my best resources. I break down what's actually working in ads right now. The link is in the description, or you can just scan the QR code and I'll see you in the next one.